Welcome to Oregon's backcountry. I'm Dan Holt. Last year we made a video called Ghost Towns of Oregon. Since that time, many people have come to Oregon, to Cresswell, Oregon, and asked for a copy of the film or written to me. And so we decided to make another video this year, 1989, called Ghost Towns of Oregon number 2. Many people don't realize that on these back roads of Oregon that there's some pretty interesting things, like there's a big flat desert that's almost 20 miles long, similar to Utah's Salt Lake Desert. Also there's a geyser similar to the one there in Yellowstone down around Lakeview, Oregon. And there's a lot of other interesting things, and we're just going to show them all to you. I hope you enjoy this film called Ghost Towns of Oregon number 2. The first ghost town takes us to Astoria, Oregon, and across Oregon's longest bridge to a town off to the right on the other side there, about 6 miles. It's called Frankfort, Washington, and it used to be an old fishing village, but now it's abandoned. By the way we found this town and most of the others from the last ghost town movie was from this book, Ghost Towns of the Pacific Frontier, by Flora, which was published in 1970. He showed this picture of this nice old house that was left abandoned in 1962 when the last resident, an old Swedish fisherman, had to go to the rest home. 19 years later, only a couple of walls remain of that same building. Because of the heavy rainfall here, these buildings deteriorate pretty fast. I was surprised to find a young man living here in what's left of this next building. He didn't want to be on TV, so all I got was just his voice. He came here as just a young boy, so he was able to show me a few old mossy covered boards where the post office and another old building used to be. Oh, they just fell down, huh?
Yeah, nobody took care of them.
There's no other houses around here that you know of, huh?
Yeah, there's one right here.
Just that one?
Yeah, it's still standing.
Huh. Well, that's quite a place. Let's see. Now that's, you say this is where a tree fell on, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. Pretty well fixed it up.
Yeah, it did a number on this.
Now, Frankfort's really easier to find by boat, but you can go 6 miles west here on 401 till you get to Johnson Creek Road and stay right until you pass Cision Road. And there's 3 roads that take off to the off to the left there, that you take the center one and you have to walk the last half mile because the road becomes impassable. Also, there's another town called Altoona over here on the next point, and we visited there to find out that it's no longer a ghost town. And the same with Vader over here, which used to be a ghost town, is no longer one either. Now, Altoona was also a fishing village, and that's why you see the buildings up on piers here. This was a 1970 picture. And you see here in these pictures today the buildings have been repaired and there's a few old rotting piers. There's a few people that live here now. It's a beautiful little community. There are still these 3 or 4 old houses yet that are abandoned. And there's this one house here that's collapsed. Now, as you can see from these old pictures, Vader used to be a pretty good sized town. Today there's only a grocery store and a restaurant and a few little houses, but there's just a few things left of the old town, like the old jail here, and also there's a couple of old houses that are still there. But for the most part, people have pretty well moved back into Vader, and it's occupied again. One of the places it's no longer a ghost town. By the way, one of the reasons we was going through Washington here was because we were filming this video called Banff and Jasper Parks. Probably some of the most beautiful scenery in the world is found here. And if anybody would like to see it and you can't find it in your video store, well, my address is at the end of this video. This old tractor here is on the southeast corner of Washington, where we're coming into Oregon at. There's a sign at this first town warning you that it's 77 miles to the next gas station. Most of the early people came out here because of the free land. One person could homestead about 160 acres, and if you had a wife, 320 acres, or even more if you had older children. That made it quite a temptation to the early people, the pioneers. So a lot of them braved the Indians and the cholera and all kinds of things, starvation and whatnot, to get here. Several wagon trains would usually join together to cross the plains because the Indians were hostile. But once they got to Oregon, well, they could break up into smaller parties and go wherever they wanted to. This steep mountain goes down into Oregon when you get down to the river there. And we're going first to a place called Troy, which actually does have a gas station, although it's off the road. And then from there we'll go back up the steep hill on the other side. And the first ghost town we'll come to will be a place called Lost Prairie. Now this is a 1900 map which you can get from your local library. And this is how we found most of the ghost towns here. This is the top corner of Oregon up here, and Lost Prairie is there, Flora and Paradise, and we went down to Enterprise and Joseph. Another thing that you'll find real handy if you're ghost towning is one of these maps from the State Forest Service. They show, besides just where these old towns are at and the secondary roads, they also show all the buildings, these little squares. This road here is no longer here, and there are several other old houses that used to be at Flora which we didn't get to visit. But if somebody wanted to walk about a mile or so, they could find those too, probably. Over here on the west side of Lost Prairie, there's a few houses. This old house here was abandoned, looks like, and the furniture's still in it. A few little animals out here in the front, which seem to be leaving. And inside everything looks like just about like the people left it. By the way, if you visit these old ghost towns, well, try to leave everything like it is and don't break it up. That way other people can enjoy it just as much as you do. This is on a hill coming into Lost Prairie. It's on down the valley. This is the old Lost Prairie Church and Schoolhouse. there's just a few people live here in Flora. We found a couple people who were raised here. One of them wouldn't talk, but this other lady who has a one-room library in her house, well, she told us a little bit about Flora. For one thing, this nice old schoolhouse here was for sale a year ago for $11,000. They would probably take less, though. It's just a long ways out in the country. This is Myrtle Wolf. She was raised in Flora, Oregon, and she's the county librarian here. Can you tell us a little bit about Flora?
Well, you want me to tell about the buzzards?
Yeah.
They homesteaded here, and they had the first baby girl, I understand, that was born here, and they named her Flora. And they had the post office, and so finally the town got named Flora after the Flora buzzard.
Okay. And you say she's 100 years old and still alive, you think?
Well, she was about a year ago or so. Why she was, because she was right out here in the lane. I think it was 2 years ago.
So she's over 100 years old
Yeah.
and still alive, as far as you know.
Yeah.
That's something.
She lives down in California, but I don't hear from her or anything, you know.
Well,
Most of the people that lived around here were homesteaders, weren't
Yes,
they?
they were all homesteaders. They come in and homesteaded.
And you could get 160 acres per person.
Well, I don't think they did it first. They had to take an additional 40, I think, on that, or some way or other. That was maybe my dad.
Just
did.
40 total, and then.
No, I don't know what they would prove up on first.
What did they have to do to prove up?
Build them a cabin
Oh,
and live on it.
For how long?
how long?
Well, I don't know that, but I suppose to build long enough to build a cabin and it look like they're going to be permanent for a while. You
I
see.
see. What was it like going to school here? You said there was about 150 people in that big school?
We didn't have any buses. We had to come afoot, walk, horseback. That's the way they come, and some of them rode, well, 10 miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some of them walked 4 and 5 miles. Just
And was the winter real severe? Was it real cold?
Yeah, well, it wasn't so cold,
No.
but we had a lot of snow.
Oh.
We had a lot of snow for them to wait in the winter time. This is the third schoolhouse over here standing now that we had in Florida.
You had 2 others. And
Yeah.
Did they burn down or you tore them down?
Well, no, they built this one, and then they moved the one that was standing, the old one, across, and they had the Oddfellows bought it, and they had Oddfellow meetings in it for a while. And
is it not there anymore?
no, it isn't.
It's gone.
It's gone now. And the other one, I don't know. I don't remember the first one that was here. It was up on the other side of town here.
But there's not very many original buildings here, is there?
Well, yeah, there's the Conley house up there has been built for a good many years. That old house right on Main Street, and the one on the corner there, the Clark house.
Yeah, and the one right next to it was the Conley house that's about ready to fall down.
And then the Clark house is right on the corner
right on
there.
the corner. And that's
And we used to have 2 hotels and a bank, 3 stores at one time.
and they're all gone.
They're all gone.
They're all gone.
The lady that lives by the church says that she's thinking of tearing the church down because the ice fell out off the roof and broke her windows last year.
We were telling her
That's
we
too
hoped
bad.
that she could reserve that church building because it's such.
That's what I've wished.
I was telling my husband that I think there's something like a society.
Historical society might be
Historical
interested
society might be interested, and maybe you could relate to her that she should contact the Historical Society of Oregon, and because she said it would be like $3,000 to put a roof on, and maybe there would be a funds that could fix the roof and save the building.
Well, I said I'd seen Flora grow and I've seen it die.
Yeah.
You know, which really hurts when you.
And
But it
how?
caused so many people to move away, just no work around here?
It was during the war when, you know, going to those plants to make big money and
And the people left for that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. that's what took a lot of people from everywhere.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
you know, it got so, of course they farmed with horses, you know, walking plow and a harrow's all you needed.
Mhm.
You know, farming has changed quite a little
Oh,
now,
yeah.
you know, you have to have several hundred
Good.
acres to make a,
Mhm.
if you buy one of these high-priced cats anymore, or you've got to have some work for it,
Yeah.
or tractors, you
Yeah.
know, and combined.
Yeah, I noticed every place just seems to be with wheat, but the wheat looks really good here.
Yes, it does, but we had a hail here
Did you?
about a month ago.
Did it damage it?
It did in places. Some of them 100%, and then
Yeah.
others, why?
I know,
Not that
I'm
much.
originally from Kansas.
Oh, are you?
And that's happened a lot of times in Kansas. We've lost a lot of our wheat. We raise lots of wheat there, just like here.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, this country makes me think so much of Kansas.
Oh.
It's kind of a rolling hill, you know, with prairies and, you know, and it's very much like Kansas.
Well.
Don't do all the
Yeah.
talking.
Okay. How many real people live here? The number?
Right here in the
Yeah,
town?
right here in the town.
Oh, I don't know. Is
Not
there,
too many.
No, I don't know whether there's 20 or not.
Yeah.
Mostly retired people, is it, or older?
No, most of them, we're about the only ones retired.
Oh, really?
Well, I guess you'd call Claire up there by the church, she's retired now, and Elmo there, Elmo and Jean Curry, they're in the big White House, they're retired. But the rest of the people, their son up there works on the state, or county, I mean.
County,
Excuse
Oh.
me.
So he has to drive into Enterprise or somewhere?
No,
every day?
he works at Troy.
Oh.
He goes down there and works.
Oh, I see.
It's a county, I said state, but it's a county. that
County.
road.
Most of the people who moved away from here had to sell their places cheap to the neighbors or else just leave them anyway if they couldn't sell. Mrs. Wolf said they had to buy another house and lot because they couldn't find any water after drilling several wells on their own place. You might ask, what's there to do in a ghost town? Well, for one thing, Mrs. Wolf makes these beautiful quilts. Now, the next ghost town a couple miles away from here is Paradise. And just one look at it, you can see why they call this place Paradise. This has been the first half hour of Ghost Towns of Oregon #2, which is a video that we took back in 1989. There's many interesting ghost towns in this part of the state. I hope you've enjoyed watching them. Come on back again next week and we'll see more of Oregon's ghost towns and interesting places on these back roads.